All right, everybody, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us again virtually. Hope that you are comfortable and you're safe and healthy in your homes. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what this is. If you haven't been here before, we're excited to have you join us. This is our second week giving this a try, and it's a little bit different than your traditional webinar. So I do ask and invite you to share as you want to. You can either share in the chat or through video. And if you were with us last week, thank you for coming back. We're going to be sharing some additional resources, kind of building on what we did last time and digging into some of those kind of pain points. I do want to let you know that, everyone has families home. We do included Alex Dreyer, who's going to introduce himself in a little bit, is with me as well from our team. Have a baby, have a dog, have a husband in the house, and so do you. Those specifics, but you probably have others around, and so it's okay if there's a dog barks or somebody walks through the background. We are just living our new normal, so that's totally okay. So thank you for joining us for FI Connects. What we're going to be doing is just kind of sharing and digging into some specific problems of practice with this new virtual learning environment that we're now leading. But first, I'd love to have you introduce yourself. Let us know your name, maybe where you're joining us from. I know this is a middle school group, but if there's any coaches that are joining us, or if there's specific content area that you focus on and teach, we would love to know. If you don't mind sharing in our chat window, and that should be available in the bottom, your little bar. There we go. And we'll be using the chat window throughout today, so please feel free to keep that open because that's kind of where a lot of people share their resources as well. And again, we're going to be capturing that as we go through. And I'm going to go ahead. I believe we are recording. Yes. Yes, okay, good. I just want to let you know this is being recorded.
Yeah, we should be good.
Thank you. Thank you, Alex.
Yeah.
So you have a couple people from Salem Middle School, right school. Okay, we have a fair amount of Wake people. Welcome.
Hi, everyone.
Richard, I think you joined us last time. Welcome. Wilmington, New Hanover City Schools. Gotcha. Hi, Shannon. Hope you're doing well.
Hey, Shannon.
What's up, everybody? Thank you for joining us. You can continue to share and introduce yourselves. We're going to introduce ourselves real quickly. My name is Brittany Miller. That's my Twitter. If you're on Twitter, I'd love to connect with you. But I am a instructional innovation coach at the Friday Institute, and I work with schools and districts across North Carolina that are implementing new programs and helping take a shift to digital remote learning, because so we're excited to be here to work with you and to talk about some things and problems of practice and just share as educators. So I'm going to turn it over to Alex really quickly, who's going to introduce himself.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Alex Dreyer. I'm the instructional design lead here at the Friday Institute. I do a lot of work around our blended and our online instruction, which has taken on increased relevance these days. But paradoxically, it's actually, we're not trying to do optimal, new, crazy things with online learning. We're trying to just figure out ways to get through and to stay connected. So I think that's the main goal of what we're doing here. And as Brittany alluded to before, I myself have a 4-year-old and 7-year-old wandering around, and I gave them, they have tablets right now, but I don't know how long that's going to last. So if you see people burst in and craziness ensues, I apologize in advance, or at least acknowledge the laughter that will ensue when that happens. So hi, everyone.
No need to apologize. It's just the new normal.
It is.
But yeah, so anyone, please feel free. It's okay if you family is family and life happens, and we're all making it work. A little bit about the Friday Institute. If you haven't heard of us or worked with us before, we are the research arm of the College of Ed of North Carolina State University. And again, our team does a bunch of different projects related to professional learning, but there's other teams as well. It's the Friday Institute. But I just wanted to kind of share that quick background of where this comes from. So FI Connects was kind of an idea that pulled from that, where we wanted to provide an opportunity for teachers, leaders, coaches to connect and have opportunities to share, because we saw a lot of great content being pushed out through webinars and a lot of great content being shared, but there wasn't a lot of spaces for people just to simply ask questions and discuss. And so that is part of what we're trying to do today. Is we'll have an opportunity at the end to really open up the floor if there's other questions, but we'll have some general topics that we'll talk about. Alex and I will share some resources, and then we'll open up for your ideas and what's working, or what questions you have related to this topic as we go through. So this is encouraged to be really built and driven by you guys. So please feel free to share as we go through. Really quickly, this is a Zoom platform. Two main things that we're going to be using today is that chat window. So we're just kind of focusing on that. And as you go through, you can ask questions and share through the chat, but you can also, if there's moments, and again, we'll be pausing throughout this to kind of talk. If you want to hop on the mic, we would love to have you share that way as well. So again, just kind of touching base. FI Connects today is discussion-based, co-led with you. We built today's content based off the feedback from last time, as well as other feedback that we're hearing from middle school teachers. So hopefully this will be helpful in the kind of general topics that we picked. So first, to kind of let everybody breathe for a moment, in the chat window, I want you to share a song title that captures how you're feeling right now. I just want to do a quick pulse check and see how you're feeling in this moment. It could be professionally, personally, and it can be anything at all. Not the song lyrics, just that song title that kind of captures how you're feeling right now.
That have access to typical care.
Not creative, but I'm going crazy. That's fair.
Up that hotline, we've connected.
The kid's not all right. Yes.
That's great. That is fantastic. Highway to Hell. I love it. Oh man.
Amazing guys. Stronger. It's a hard knock life. Very nice. One day at a time. Totally with you on that one. The end of the world as we know it. I like that one. Just breathe. Yes. Wonderful. So I just wanted to kind of capture that how everybody was feeling. So it seems like we're all kind of don't stand so close to me. That's a good one. Well
And I think, in Brittany, I think mine would be Into the Unknown from Frozen 2, only because A, the song is sort of relevant, and B, because my daughter sings it 50 times a day. So I hear it, even if it weren't relevant, I still would hear it nonstop. And she's actually doing it right now. I don't know if anyone can hear it, but she's literally just screaming it.
Have her come in and sing. But thank you for sharing. Yeah, we're all kind of surviving, and that's kind of the focus of today is getting out of survival mode because I'm sure you're all feeling, especially since the last time we met, it was announced that schools would be closed for 2 weeks, and we had to count that out. And now schools aren't, I think everybody here is from North Carolina, not opening for a while. And so this is an entirely different even perspective is now we have to think about the longer term of what we're going to do because going day by day, and we'll dig into this, is not going to, we got to get out of survival mode because we can't live through survival mode until May. It's just not healthy for us and it's not healthy for our kids. So we're going to talk about some strategies and ways to kind of get out of survival mode. So the first three, and these are going to be our three general topics, and we'll dig into each one as we go through. The first one we'll talk about is slowing down. The second one is reaching out, and our last one is rethinking class. And so the first thing that we're going to kind of dig into, and Alex and I are going to share some resources real quick, and then we're going to open up for questions and ideas, strategies, resources that you guys have. is how are you addressing your needs as a human being? So be thinking about that as we share and kind of get this started. The first thing I want you to do is I want you to find a scrap piece of paper. It may be a envelope that you have or something around. It could be anything you have to write on. If it'll take a couple seconds, it could be ideally it would be a piece of paper that you're not, don't get a monogrammed notepad or something nice.
A bill of some sort.
Don't throw away or write on anything. But I want you to find a piece of paper for me. It doesn't matter what it looks like, and do that really, really quick and something to write with. And I'll do that too. So I have sticky notes. What I want you to do is, really just kind of one word responses. I want you to write down on that piece of paper, or if you have multiple, it could be multiple pieces of paper, the one or two biggest things in your personal or professional life that are really, really bothering you right now. So like the top of the list of the stress factors, and I want you to write those down. And I'm going to write mine down, and it could just, with everything going on right now, the top one or two things that are really stressing you out.
One team, one mission.
This is funny doing it without being able to see people, because normally I do this in face-to-face PD, but I'm going to trust that everybody's doing this. And then I want you to actually, let me see if I can unmute. Thank you. Sorry about that. I'll repeat the instructions real quick. Let me see if I can mute everybody. I think I have that ability. Okay. Is that better? I think it might be better. All right. So once you have your piece of paper and you've written down the one or two things that are really stressing you out right now, I want you to take that piece of paper, I want you to crumble it up, and I want you to let it go and toss it either at somebody, or if you have a trash can nearby, you can try and shoot and score. Whatever it is, I want you to try and throw it away. If you have a spouse that happens to be in the same room, perhaps you could chuck it at them, as long as they're being, take it like, but throw that stress, that concept away. So just toss it somewhere. Let go of that snowball and just put that aside for a moment. And this is something that you could do with your family if you're in isolation. You could have a mini snowball fight with pieces of paper, and that's kind of what we're doing right now. We're going to throw it away. We don't have, maybe you don't have anyone at the moment to check it at, but you can check it at, the trash can. But find a way to set aside that stress and the things that we cannot control. Because that's the first thing that, as a human being right now, with the incredible amount of stress that we're under, with the incredible amount of pressure for so many different things, we have to find a way to put things aside and, kind of try to worry less about some of those things. Not that it is easy, but try to throw away those snowballs. Perhaps this is a game you play later with your family, because I honestly feel like we didn't get enough snow this year. That's another thing I'm upset about. But we also have some resources for you. So when you're thinking about how our brain works, when our brain is under stress, we're not able to perform our best. It's just not possible. So Arvina, I can still hear you. What? Okay, I think it's better. Okay. So when our minds are stressed out and maxed out, we can't think as well as we can when we are able to set some of that stress aside. So there's never been a more important time for you to take time for yourself and do things like yoga, or just go for a walk outside, using that social distancing, of course. But being mindful, we have two apps for you. One is called Stop, Breathe, Think. and it's free for educators. And it's a mobile app, and it will actually tell you and remind you at certain spaces to stop and breathe for a minute, which can be just a good reminder, if nothing else. There's also an alternative tool that's called Headspace that I'm going to have Alex talk really quickly about.
Yeah, so this is a meditation tool. Many of you, it's a pretty popular tool, but I think one of the upsides is that it does provide free access for educators. So if you go to that URL with the /educators, there's like a drop down for your state, and then you sign up with your district URL with your district email address, and you should be able to get free access to the app. And I think one of the things that I try to do, am I perfect at it? Absolutely not, but I try to at least get like a couple minutes of, I have a different tool that I use, but it's similar. I already had subscribed to it. It's called Calm, which is another app. But just a couple of minutes, if I just, because it kind of can get you out of just what is obviously a hectic period, and even just for a little bit, to put a little bit of space between like that acting and reacting. At least I found it to be really helpful. So as I said, like I think it typically is over $100 a year, and educators can get it for free. So I recommend just checking it out, seeing if it works for you, and if not, there are any number of tools that are similar out there.
Absolutely, and you find what works for you, but finding the time, especially right now with so much on our plates, you have to take care of yourself as a human being first before you take care of everything else, because you'll be able to perform better and do better for others when you take care of yourself first. And so that's why we're kind of starting there. So the last little thing I want to share is that as part of FI Connects, we realized as a team that this was a piece that was really, really needed. So we're doing a slow chat. If you aren't, I'll actually share the whole list at the end as well. Stop, breathe, and think was the first one that I shared, where it kind of reminds you to stop and breathe, and that sorts of kind of different methods in order to take the moment. And that is based off of brain science, that you are able to better focus, to think deeper, to think more creatively when we take the time to pause and step aside from our stress and what's going on. So we also have a slow chat going on Twitter. If you are on Twitter, you can use the FI Connects, and we're kind of sharing self-care practices to, again, kind of help us. But I want to kind of open up the floor a little bit, and I want to talk about what are things that you can, what other ways, just kind of focusing on that one piece first, is how are you addressing your needs as an educator and as a human being right now? What are ways that you're slowing down and taking the time to kind of focus in before moving forward? And Cheryl will have some tools that we'll be showing you later. It's not necessarily for exceptional children, but we'll have some other resources. There you go. Taking Google certification classes. Very nice. So maybe it's own personal growth, something that's outside of what you were able to do before. Home workouts. Yep, tons of walks with the dogs. This is the best time for dogs, right? They're very excited to have everybody home all the time. Yeah, my dog is thrilled. She gets a walk every single day too.
Virtual happy hours, it's a great idea. Haven't done that yet, but I aspire to. I think that's fantastic. Yep. I know there've been lots of Zoom chats.
Yeah, limiting exposure. Michelle, that's a really point. Limiting exposure to news feeds, it's really good to be informed, but there is a limit to being too informed. That, you know, if you are overwhelmed by all the news, there is something healthy about taking a break from it, or catching up at 1 or 2 points in the day instead of, you know, constantly being involved in it. Because especially with the sad and tragic news. Walking works out, cooking and baking, virtual happy hours with friends and colleagues. That's virtual happy hours. There's a wonderful tool that I use with my family called Marco Polo. It's a video walkie-talkie tool. And it started originally because I have a friend in the Netherlands, which before all of this, that's how I connected with her because of the time difference. Because it didn't matter what time you were connecting with someone. They just kind of like, you basically ping videos back and forth to each other. And that's called Marco Polo. Yeah, you use Marco Polo as well. It's a great little app. FaceTime, it's wonderful for families, especially if you don't know when they'll be available. You don't have to schedule, you just kind of throw a video toward their way. And it's free. Yep, and it's fun. Yeah, it's okay. Honestly, and Alex and I were talking about this morning, I feel much busier than I was before. And I think it's, you know, with families home and, you know, I think it's more of like, there's always so much going on, taking the moment that you can. I've started doing yoga with like my 10-month-old crawling around, and I'm just like poses as she's, you know, as I'm chasing her around. Yep. Trying to put a brave face for others, absolutely, with kids and husbands. It's hard to explain, you know, with everything going on. I know kids want to get out. Learning how to use Google Classroom, good challenge for yourself. So wonderful. Thank you for sharing some of these ideas. Yep, and it is hard to be on call, you know, to not be on a call all the time, and I think that's where some of the pressure we feel, especially working from home, even before, you know, this whole thing happened. Sometimes we had the opportunity to work from home, and I always kind of felt like I was, you know, even more pressure to be right. Like if someone pinged me, I must respond immediately because you're remotely, but it's okay to take time when you need to take time and to not be on call all the time. Again, it's just necessary. So our second one, we're going to kind of move forward is how are we going to stay connected? Because there's so many people doing really great work, building really nice lessons and stuff, and really good ideas that we all don't need to be doing the exact same thing in duplication, right? So a 7th grade science teacher is making activity that you could directly use and share with your students. What are some ways that we can collect ideas that are already in existence that we don't have to create everything brand new from scratch right now? And because it's just not possible, it's not realistic. And so if we're going back into kind of the first one, we have to be kind to ourselves and realistic for ourselves and our kids when it comes to what we're asking them to do. And so with that in mind, there are some communities that we wanted to share real quickly, as well as a resource to help you get some ideas so that you don't have to come up with everything in isolation. And that's part of what today and these FI Connects are about, is what are great, you know, ideas that I don't have to come up on my own in isolation. So our next resource is a really great Facebook group, and I'm not a Facebook group person. I have a personal Facebook, but not really a professional one, but this is a fantastic Facebook group, because what it is when you go to that Facebook group, you can search within the page and find all sorts of different resources on what you're looking at. It's through North Carolina. So it's a bunch of North Carolina teachers sharing lessons and ideas and resources that could be used across. And so while I was skeptical when someone first showed it to me and said, I don't know about Facebook groups, it's like not kind of my thing, but really, it's really, really wonderful to check out. And you can just search in the bar by your content area or what you're looking for, in all sorts of different resources curated from teachers from across North Carolina. And I don't believe you even have to sign into Facebook to see it, but I could be wrong there. So we will drop that link and share it with you at the end of the day as well. But that is something to check out. That is one of the best communities, because I've been looking around for places for people to share resources and where things are kind of collected and organized. And honestly, that's the best one I've found so far that is organic from the teachers in North Carolina that are sharing. So I wanted to point that one out. The other one I'm going to kind of hop over to Alex to kind of share really quickly.
Yeah, so this is a website. It's called Amazing Educational Resources. It's a list that's constantly being added to, and it's curated by educators throughout the country. The downside is that it's almost not literally a laundry list, but figuratively a laundry list of resources in alphabetical order. So, and it's very, very extensive, which again is good because it's got a lot of stuff. It's bad because it's got a lot of stuff. So I would recommend taking it a little bit at a time, piece by piece. But one thing I really do like about it is it has clear descriptions of what all of these resources are, along with, you know how so many tools these days are giving a month or two for free, that sort of thing. So it has like, you know, it has instructions if the tool is offering that, along with like, you know, various codes that need to be used for it. So it has all that information in one spot. So I'd recommend, you know, dabbling with it, spending some time, you know, get through the A's and the B's maybe, then stop, and then do the C's and the D's later, like that sort of thing. But it's got, I've been really using it quite extensively for my kids here at home and creating some sort of plan for them to go through resources and figuring out some semblance of structure. Again, you're not at all trying to replicate what they're going to get in the classroom, but at least trying to give them some type of experience. And that's why I found this resource to be particularly helpful in doing that.
Yep. And we have, in talking with educators outside of this, there's been a lot of questions because again, there's so much sharing and so many great ideas that are being shared in resources. Sometimes we just need a repository. And like Alex said, you know, it's not that we wouldn't encourage you to use even a percentage of these. If you go in looking what you're looking for, and it does say the content and the grade level that it's appropriate for, so focus in on what you're looking to teach and check those resources out. I agree that of the resource lists that are available, this is one of the most clear-cut versions, and they're all free, and that's also a huge benefit, you know, because some other lists have part free or, you know, paid tools in them. So nice to see you, Pam. Thanks for joining us. But that is just one of the lists that we want to show you. But I want to pull it over to you guys and talk about what ways are you sharing, you know, your ideas, your lessons. Where are you pulling ideas from? If you have a resource or a place that you are sharing. We would love to know where you are sharing and learning from. And it could be your PLCs if you want to talk about if you've connected with your colleagues still. Twitter, yep, I'm a huge Twitter person. Connect with me on Twitter if we aren't already connected.
And that's where I actually found that list of resources. There's somebody showing it on Twitter, so there you go.
Yep. Google Meetings, yep, Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
So you're meeting PLCs through, or your PLT through Google Meets. Yep. Collaborative Google Docs. Nice.
There have been a few emails these days too. Yeah, millions and millions is not inaccurate.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. District virtual PLCs and content teams, group text. Yep. That's a great idea. It's just having a process for the shared Google Docs and resources, again, so people are not making it in isolation. And that can be incredibly handy just to help keep us organized. Open up resources. I have not heard of that one, Jennifer. I will have to check that out. Open up resources. HyperDocs.
Mm-hmm. That's great about the Zoom meeting.
Oh, thank you.
To reach out to middle school kids. That's great.
Lovely. Nice. Yep, one-stop slide share for students and families that's posted on our website. Oh, you've seen some
The
TikTok.
TikToks, that's great. I didn't see one of those, Shannon. That was awesome.
Go
And,
noodle
and
for
speaking,
me.
and also speaking from a parent's perspective, the notion of a one-stop shop is incredibly useful. So I've been talking to my daughter's first grade teacher about, what she should share with parents, what can be most useful from their perspective. And just having like it doesn't have to be complicated at all. It can be a Word doc, Google Doc, but just just a central place to go is, rather than having to click to a million different places and having a bunch of individual emails sent out, just from a parent side is really, really helpful. So I just wanted to throw that out there as a parent.
The easiest way to reach our kids and reach our parents, sharing through or learning through YouTube tutorials and screencasts. Wonderful. Yeah, and you have a district remote teaching team. That's nice. Very simple. I bet their demand has went way through the roof.
So.
Very nice. Thank you for sharing. And the last one, which will be the largest chunk of this afternoon, of Google Chat. Yep. It's just, any ways that you can kind of connect remotely and share with others is just, again, capitalize on the time that we have. The last one is I want to kind of encourage you to think outside the box and rethink class, because now we have some serious lemons in that it's, again, not 2 weeks, it's looking toward May before we might be seeing our kids again in person, which is pretty much the end of the semester, right? So if you're in a traditional calendar, at least. So with that in mind, what we're looking at right now is not really just a pause in our education system. This is a huge culture shift. It's a very dramatic idea that with very, very limited information and very limited heads up for what was coming, we've made this dramatic shift to remote learning, and some of our kids were not ready. We certainly were not ready to do all of this all at once. And with the mindset that we don't know necessarily what our kids, or we may have some idea, but we do know our kids don't have the same resources at home. Our kids may have other distractions, and we talked more about this last time, but our kids have potentially other siblings. They may be watching as an older sibling, their younger siblings. They could have a lot of other things. They could be, dealing with stress and anxiety of what's going on, or potentially sick parents. You just don't know right now. So with that in mind, we wanted to share this from Lexington Public Schools. They shared this wonderful document that I just realized I did not link, but I will drop the link in. And it goes through, and it's quite lengthy, but it's a wonderfully written directions on how they're supporting their teachers with remote learning. And I wanted to dig into these points that they made because I 100% agree with all of them, and challenge us to think about how we can do this, because this is a more realistic turn to me on how to do this remote learning thing versus trying to do what we did in our face-to-face classrooms in a remote learning environment. It's just not possible, and it's not feasible. We can't expect students to do the exact same amount of work, the exact same kind of work at home than in a remote learning environment than we would in our face-to-face classroom. And we can't, as teachers, build lessons and activities that would be the same as what we would do in our face-to-face classrooms. Some of our pedagogical strategies and methods work, but some of them don't. Some of them we just can't do because they're not with us. And so these are some things that I want to talk to you about. First is like being mindful of time, because when we had students in class, we had them for a set amount of time, and we knew that they were going to be with us and they were going to, throughout the day. And for a set period of time, and so we could plan around that. With everything moving remotely and other classes also providing work for students, being realistic is you can only expect about half of what you think they can handle in a face-to-face classroom. And so being thoughtful about how much time is realistic for kids to work on activities is kind of the first step along the way, is turning that instruction time in half. And thinking about it, if you had a certain number of hours every week, cut that time in half, and then what can students accomplish in that time? And working with other teachers as well that have your students so that they know that we're not overwhelming these kids who are already totally overwhelmed with the fact that they can't see their friends and that they're living in a very different and scary moment in time right now. So we have to be a little bit more forgiving of ourselves and our students when it comes to the time that's related to instruction. The second step is parents aren't teachers, and we can't expect them to teach them. It's certainly not the way that we teach them, because it's probably been a while since they have been taught, and they probably were taught in an entirely different way than the way that we are teaching our kids now. And while we may be able to lean a little bit if the student happens to have an older sibling, maybe they can get some help there. But we can't realistically ask parents to be teachers or to be more helpful than they were when we asked them to help with homework or expected, to give students a hand with little things. And so, and especially when we're, most parents are either working remotely, they have a lot of other things on their plate. They may be worried about feeding their kids and this sickness, and they have a lot on their plate too. And so that goes in hand with the time, right? We can't expect our parents to teach our kids the way that we would teach them. And so while sending and sharing resources, we have to be realistic and mindful of our parents. And so with those two things in mind, instead of sending things down day to day, even this is separate from like check-in. So if you were to say hello to a student every day, like you should absolutely do that. You should say and welcome students to class and that sort of thing. But think more about weekly goals. What are weekly goals that I can set for my students that they're expected to reach by the end? And I start turning my learning over to my students, and instead of it being very directive or sending packets home or having very described activities for students, what are ways that I could set learning goals for them or help them understand what we need to try to accomplish, and being flexible on that timeline. So they may have days that they choose to dig in a little bit deeper on one day versus the other, but as long as they're working toward that learning, again, it's a different environment right now. We just can't expect to fulfill the curriculum like we would in the face-to-face classroom. Now, with those in mind, I'm gonna kind of dig into the second group of three, is if your students do have siblings, are there ways, challenges that we can present them, projects that we can provide, or things that we can have siblings work together, because at least they have somebody to collaborate and work with maybe in the house. Maybe they don't, maybe some of our kids don't have siblings, but for those that do, are there ways that we can utilize their siblings or give them little challenges that would be cross-curricular even, and we'll dig into some ideas and resources related to these ideas. I'm not going to just throw this at you and then not give you some stuff. I will point that out. To help them still be learning collaboratively and not just filling out packets or trying to complete the things that they would have completed in class. The next one is limiting new content. Are there ways that we can, instead of trying to teach from a distance new content, and not that you can't, but again, being realistic about how much you can help a student who is working remotely, how much time can you give when you have your own family and all the other students? You can't sit in the same way that we can have one-on-one meetings with every single one of our kids in the face-to-face classroom. We probably can't do that remotely either, while being realistic or responsive to our own families right now. So being conscious of the new content that they're learning, when they don't have the opportunity to ask you in person and ask those questions, and to work together on problems, it's just a little bit different. And while there's amazing resources like YouTube, like other resources, our students with no or limited internet access, if they don't have the ability to reach those resources, then it's not really fair, and all we're doing is furthering the gap. So in the next slide, I'll talk about some ideas on how we can help our students, particularly those without internet access, without leaving them behind. And the last step is one of the most important pieces, is that feedback and communication. The most important aspect of this entire thing is to continue building community and make sure our kids do not feel alone. To make sure that they know that there is, that you care and that you're there, and that even though this craziness is going on, you're consistent, and whatever work that they put forth, you know, whatever they're digging into, and just giving them that feedback, to know that while they can't see you, it doesn't mean that you don't value their work. So that last little piece is that feedback and communication. So I have a couple ideas and resources. This is a wonderful, I'm going to see if I can, oops, my bad. I'm going to hop over here real quick because I want to steal that link and show it to you, because there's all these wonderful ideas on this document. Where am I? Here I am. On how to do different projects that are not based on technology. There we go. That's what I was looking for. So these are wonderful little ideas on how, now this was of course written for elementary, but that doesn't mean that you can't come up with the same non-tech activities. Think about what is around your students that maybe they'd be able to do something with. Could they sit or FaceTime with a older family member and ask them about a time in history? Could they write about making a connection in their experience and what they're viewing? We talked last time about making connections to other autobiographies in journals from history. Are there ways that they can engage with science in a more, you know, by going outside, by observing, you know, the natural world, by going on nature walks, you know, all these different things, writing a letter, you know, doing things that, while it is not something that is going to be directly potentially tied to our content, it's still learning, and there's still value in that, because we're going to have to kind of let go of our curriculum a little bit in this new craziness. And so with that in mind, and this is the last thing I'm going to talk about before I open up the floor to you guys, this is a huge opportunity to, and I'm trying again to make a lemonade out of lemons, to do something very student-centered, to turn learning over to them, where they can ask a question and explore based off the resources and what they have available to them in a way that's not going, while it's going to be different, of course, whether a student has internet access or not. A student may be able to still do something very interesting or study something that's very interesting and relevant, even without the resources that other students may have. And it's less about, you know, building that gap or making that student feel like they're left behind. It's about looking around you, related to this content area, related to, if you're doing earth science, related to earth science, I want you to pick a question that I want you to research and answer. And research could be, you know, studying outside, watching the weather patterns, you know, that sort of thing. PBLworks.org has a lot of great resources, project ideas, as well as rubrics related to project-based learning, if you wanted and are interested in that data. The other thing I've seen some teachers start doing is giving weekly challenges to write a journal about, you know, watching the flowers bloom this spring. And because everything is starting to blossom, at least here in Raleigh. So giving them a weekly challenge that is related to content, something that they are writing prompts, something like that, that would be working toward, that still would be tied to their content. Things to measure, things to mix, baking, you know, you can, there's math and science and writing and history everywhere. So what are ways that we can utilize that? And the last one is really open, which is Genius Hour, which is allowing students to pick something that they're very passionate about and digging into it. Because again, our content areas, while they live in isolation in most of our school hours in traditional school, because it's not possible to, well, it's not possible, it's really difficult to do cross-curricular all the time, you know, throughout the day in our normal classrooms. Now that our students are not restricted to these set schedules that they have, they could do some interesting cross-curricular work and dig into something that really interests them, where they'd still be learning content, just in a way that pulls on their natural intrinsic motivation. So with that in mind, hopefully I didn't totally go outside the box there, but I want you to discuss and to share some ideas. What are other ways that we can take advantage of these limits and make lemonade of them, and do things in a way that's going to help our kids, especially considering that the materials that they have may be different, and we don't want to provide an opportunity for our students that don't have internet to do something beyond packets. And so I'm going to kind of turn it over in the chat window if you want to share any ideas that you have, resources, and then after this we'll be kind of opening up to additional questions. Yep, absolutely. Take time to talk, build those relationships, have those conversations. We talked about that a lot last time, was how are we connecting with our kids? If they don't have internet access, are we giving them phone calls just so they know that we're out there and we care and that they can reach them? There's tools out there such as Remind that will hide your phone number, so you can text reminders or messages to parents. Yep. Phone calls if there's no other means of connection. I mean, you could do, yep, Google Voice hides numbers as well, so you could still do phone calls to parents and to students. Again, checking in with them, let them know that you are thinking about them if they need anything right now. Yep. Posting Google Meets. Yeah, just having an opportunity, you know, again, going back to that building community, opportunities for students to share and see each other's faces as possible. Wonderful. Yep, schedule, make sure every kid gets a contact. Every kid needs to know.
Now, if I could just touch on Casey's really thoughtful chat comment in the chat there. I think you're so right that this can give a lot of us an opportunity to dabble in some of these ideas as long as we go into it with the understanding that it's not going to be perfect, it's not going to be an ideal application at all, because A, we're learning these on the fly, and B, we're learning these during a really stressful time. So you have both of those things going on at once, but at least the idea, again, that lemonade concept, like if the seed is planted, that, oh, maybe sometime down the line, I can sort of see where this is headed, even though I'm not doing it exactly as I want, even though everything's a little chaotic, but I can kind of see, oh, there's something here that, you know, when maybe things settle down a little bit, whenever in the future, I can kind of start sinking my teeth into it and see what I can do. I think that, to me, is potentially an upside here down the line. But I think, you know, as long as we're humble about it, and as long as we're forgiving of ourselves for not doing it perfectly, because it's not going to be, I think there's some potential, again, down the line.
Yeah, and I do think, like I was saying, this is a disruption, a very shock disruption in our typical education system. And so I do hope, and I do think it's an opportunity of, again, taking lemonade out of lemons, an opportunity where we can think outside the box and do something a little different. Because if we try, going what I said a little bit earlier, if we try to do exactly what we were doing in our classrooms at the exact same pace, our kids are going to be totally overwhelmed. They're going to get really frustrated. We are going to be totally overwhelmed, and we're going to get really frustrated. And everybody's going to burn out on top of this virus, and that's just not the thing that we need right now. Like, our stress, you know, brings down your immune system. So everybody needs to take a time to take care of themselves as human beings. We need to slow down the pace of our curriculum and expectations, and, you know, possible, turn the learning over to the students, because we don't know what materials they have. We don't know specifics of what time and responsibilities or stresses are put on our students and their parents right now. And so with all that in mind, we're going to have to be Gumby like we have never been Gumby before. As educators, we have always been Gumby and flexible, but this is like Shelby said at the end, it is a strange time for all of us. And so what are ways that we can, let some of that and think a little bit differently about the way that we're teaching.
Yeah, and especially really, so much of this is touched on it, the idea of being as supportive as we can, just from a social and emotional context with our students, because I mean, just statistically, a chunk of them are going to be having parents who've lost their jobs and all of a sudden have, no income source. They're going to be very stressed out households. So the extent to which we can not only give ourselves grace, but also extend that to our students and just really, again, anchor with that communication and just sort of be in there to the extent you can. I think that's to me the top priority for all of this. Besides, any instructional innovations are lovely, but I think the core is really that connection and maintaining and that connection and again, being just kind to one another and extending some courtesy and grace.
Yep, grace for everybody, ourselves included, our students included. But if you have other ideas on ways that you can help students, again, without technology, or do things a little differently. And the idea is not, again, it's not that you do that right now, but it should be a release of the pressure of trying to keep up with the curriculum as it stands, because again, it is just not possible. So it is intended to be hopefully a little bit of a relief. But what other questions? I saw one earlier that Alex kind of responded to about, students or other ideas. Okay, my students were trading podcasts. Yes. Not always school appropriate. That happens, but it's a thing that we can all kind of share and focus on, something that's not, academic, but community building. And what other ways are you kind of building community? I know some people will join us from last time. I didn't know if you tried something new related to that community question. What other ways are, other than Google Hangouts and some of our chat and phone calls? And also if there's other questions on your mind, other topics you'd like to discuss to kind of close out today. Postcards.
That's great.
Very nice. I love that idea. Especially if you haven't been able to get a hold of them through phone. Yep, messing around on Flipgrid. I've seen some funny stuff happening on Flipgrid with like dance-offs amongst students and just like, the chance to say hi to people. Ooh, maybe we'll pen pal. That'd be fun. You could do like a secret pen pal amongst students or something. Postcards, flip hunts. At home with Mr. V. How to do the laundry. Oh, I love it. You got plenty of criticism for not teaching life skills. So I figured finish the opportunity. I love it, Seth. That's fantastic. Because again, it gets to let your students see you as a human. It's a little bit of humor, and it's practical. Nice. I think we're going to have a bunch of kids who are going to be way better roommates and adults from this because they're going to have that time to specifically learn these life skills. Yep, morning meeting, making YouTube videos. I mean, anything that you can. Again, this is an opportunity where we can connect with them. You've learned how to screencastify. Wonderful. And I used to use Screencastify to screencast student writing and give feedback, which is an idea on how you could use that if you were doing any sort of writing or feedback. Feedback doesn't have to just be written. You could do little videos for your students and give the feedback on the work that they do provide or do as a different way to provide that feedback. We'll kind of close out 1 more minute if there's any last ideas or questions, and we will do a form at the end about any questions that you have that you want to kind of dig into or resources for next time as well. All right, and you can continue adding in if there's any other ideas or resources. But again, quick review, slow down, reach out, rethink class, and breathe. Don't forget to breathe. Green screen videos, news broadcast for history. See, that's some fun stuff.
That's really cool.
What we're thinking about when I say rethink class, you know, rethinking about what we're doing. And I love that idea of doing news broadcasts. You could do funny, just news broadcasts about, you know, students interviewing a parent or a sibling or the dog, you know, I don't know, where you could do all sorts of different things. Love it. Great idea. But to kind of close this out as a final reflection, I feel the last time I asked is, I feel that I need to be successful in these uncertain times. I need to be. And this time I want to ask you what you need to feel. I feel that to be successful in these uncertain times, I need to feel, and if you'll respond to that in your our chat real quick, just a 1-word response. Calm, yes. Calm voice. Empowered, I love that. Zen, that's a good word. Hopeful, yes. Keep the hope alive. Included, yes. Connected. Optimistic. Challenged, I like that. Focused. And flexible. Absolutely. We have to be all of those things. We need to stay connected. We need to stay calm. And even if everything else is chaos, if we can do our best to remain calm with our students and to encourage them and to make them feel safe, because this is just a trying time for everybody. And again, you don't know what's going on at home or what kind of stress they're experiencing. But to do all of those things, to be calm, to be happy, to feel connected, we have to take care of ourselves as human beings. So again, make sure that you take time for yourself, as hard as it is. We're going to close out. We would love your feedback. We do use this in the creation of the next session. We'll kind of come up with 3 general topics again, kind of like what we did today, where we'll discuss and share around those 3 main topics. So if you will give us somebody shared a picture. If you will share real quickly on that feedback form, I'll try to drop, I don't know, Alex, can you drop that into the chat for us?
Sure.
And don't leave quite yet, because I have just a little bit more information. I'm going to put that link, Alex is going to drop that link into the chat. But a couple other things, if you want to check out these recordings, the recordings from the other sessions, we have high school, middle school, leadership, coaches, all sorts of different groups coming together. If you want to check out the videos or review this video, you're welcome to check out there. We'll also be doing a transcript of all of the resources shared, so that you will have that as well. I also want to point out that as part of the Friday Institute, we have a bunch of completely free online resources. I'm not saying take something on right now, but if you are looking for something, Shauna, I believe it was, I have a question. I'll get to your question in a minute. So we have the social and emotional learning course is completely open right now, teaching foundational skills, teaching mathematics and computer science. Is available right now. They're completely free, completely open, and we have educators from across the world engaging in those. And we just like to point them out because, again, they're completely open and available. If you're worried about your CEUs, which I've heard from some teachers, because the school districts aren't necessarily providing professional development in the traditional way right now, you can access those as well through there.
And I just wanted to point out for the SEL course that's designed for educators, we also we've made some modifications to suit obviously this new environment that we're in. We have a couple of new forums. One's around thinking about social and emotional learning at a distance, and others around how we can all stay connected. So we try to adapt it to the extent we can. And there have been, I would say modest adaptations, but I think they've shown people have really valued them. So again, we've got about 4,000 or so people in there from all around the world. So we definitely would encourage you to hop on in if you find the time and think it's useful.
Thank you. Yes, and again, it's a very relevant, especially right now, with all these stresses and trauma. To the question in the chat, will the PowerPoint be linked to the YouTube video? I will do that for you. I don't know if I don't think I did that before, but I will do that this time so that you can access the PowerPoint, so you don't have to watch the video to access these resources. Again, my name is Rainey Miller. Alex Dreyer joined us, and thank you so much for your time today. There will be other resources. I think that's on the slide. Nope, maybe it's not. My apologies. We will be back next Wednesday at 2 p.m. And so if you want to rejoin us, we would love to have you come back. Oh my gosh, I'm all over the place with slides, sorry. That's what I was looking for. We will be back here at 2 p.m. next Wednesday, as well as the following Wednesday. So please come back and join us. You'll receive an email. If you found us through email, we will be reaching back out to you as a reminder. But we would love for you to join and give us your feedback, and that will kind of close out for today. Thank you so much for coming and engaging with us and sharing resources. Have a wonderful rest of your afternoon, and remember to take some time for yourself.
Thank you all, and now I will get back to my 7-year-old singing at the top of her lungs.
Take care, everybody.